All right, sixth graders, hello, hello. We are going to be explaining your research project that we are doing on Monday, today, Tuesday, and then presenting on Wednesday and Thursday. So we have a little slideshow here that we're going to show you that talks about the expectations, the directions, and how you're graded. And then Mrs. Leach and I actually made an example that we're going to show you um, at the end.
Okay, so our research project is called Then and Now, and what you'll be doing is you and a partner are going to research how a specific form of technology or maybe a product has evolved. You're going to begin in the year 1800 or maybe even a little bit before that if your assigned technology was around then, and then you're going to take us through three more steps of how it evolved until we get to the present time. You are going to present this information in the form of a Google slide presentation, and as Ms. McAllister said, you're going to present it on Wednesday and Thursday of this week.
So some of the possible topics that you might be presenting on are how music has evolved or progressed through the last 100 years, how movies have progressed, how pictures have come along, how we've communicated on the phone, how we research or get our information, how we tell time, how we use transportation, how we pay for the things that we buy, how we use electricity and lights, how we communicate on the phone, and how we get food for our meals. So just thinking about those, how it started, how we got food for our meals in the 1900s, and then how it's progressed through the years, how we get it now.
And then how you are going to be graded on this. You are going to get two separate grades. One of your grades is going to be in our writing standard for how we research, and you must have 3 to 4 facts per slide, and that's per year. We'll show you in our example too. You must have a picture on each slide, the name on each slide. So if I did the research, you will see my name is on the slide with my facts and my picture. You must cite your information. So where did your sources come from? You must complete an author slide, or excuse me, a quote slide. So you have to have a quote and the author's name. You're going to complete a timeline and a title page, and that is all under the research standard. You will also then be getting a grade for how you present it. So we want you to be well prepared when you do this. You're going to have to practice it a couple of times. Are you well prepared? Do you speak loud enough and clear enough that we can hear you and understand you? Do you have eye contact with your audience? Your body language. We don't want you just like laying on the screen or sitting down or chomping gum or playing with your lanyard. So you're very formal and well poised. And then your slides are appealing. They are nice and neat, bulleted points. Pictures are there and it's clear to see. And each of these is worth a total of 25 points, so 50 points will be going into the standards for each of these.
Yeah, so sixth graders, you will be doing this with a partner, and so that I know some of you are probably thinking back to your debate grades. We want to make sure that you and your partner do equivalent amounts of work. So technically, you will only be required to complete half of the project, and that's what you will be graded on. And then your partner will complete the other half, and that's what they will be graded on. So we're going to give you an example right now. We're kind of going to go into character and show you kind of what we would expect for this presentation.
All right, our presentation to you is going to be on teaching then until now.
Education is simply the soul of a society as it passes from one generation to the next. And that is by C.K. Chesterton. If you can see here, I put my name at the bottom of the slide so that when this is graded, the teacher will know that I created this slide and I got the quote.
This is a slide that we worked on together. This is our timeline, so it is just a brief overview of the events that we felt were most important. So we'll go ahead and tell you some of the most important topics that you will see in our presentation.
So the first one is in 1900, and our fact is that most schools consisted of one-room schoolhouses.
Jumping to number 2, in the 1950s, segregation was a major issue in schools, as we well know from reading some of our stories in our units and from Watson's Go to Birmingham.
In the early 1980s, computers were just being introduced and only to certain schools.
Also in the 1980s, kids were commonly left at home after school while their parents were still working. And this is what developed into our after-school programs.
In the 2000s, there was a program called No Child Left Behind, and that is when it was developed.
And then most recent, in the 2020, COVID-19 forces schools to teach virtually, as we are well aware.
All right, so as you can see, this is a slide that I created. My name is down here, and I also cited my source by pasting the website that I got it from. I'm going to start off the 1900s to the 1940s. Here's a picture of a group of students. You can tell that some of them are younger, and some of them are older, so they combined grades, and they usually had one-room schoolhouses. The school year only usually consisted of about 121 days. That's 60 days less than what we go now. There were no attendance laws. Only about 50% of children went to school. Many schools only had one room. And the discipline was a little bit different. Many students were spanked or hit on the hand with a ruler for misbehaving.
Moving on to the 1950s to the 1970s, typewriters were used to write papers, and teachers wrote on blackboards with chalk. Also, students could leave and go home for lunch, and lockers weren't even a thing back then. Next, Black students had separate proms, sports teams, and student governments. And girls were required to wear skirts or dresses, and pants of any type were forbidden. Skirts and dresses had to cover the knee. And again, you can see my name is on the bottom, and my source is listed over here as well. I also have the 1980s to the 2000s. You can see this is a picture of a computer, and it's much larger than we are used to here. Computers were just being introduced in only select schools in the 1980s. As I mentioned in our timeline, kids were commonly left home alone after school while their parents were still working. Therefore, after-school programs began known as latchkey, and that is what we have in today's schools a lot of times in elementaries, the after-school programs. This also began in the close to the 2000s. A Nation at Risk was published, and this was stating that public schools were failing to educate their students properly. And again, you'll see my name and my source listed at the bottom.
And finally, in the 2000s until now, like I mentioned before, No Child Left Behind has come up. This held schools more accountable for student success, making sure that they succeed and don't fail. The smartboard craze, school and school districts experimented with one-to-one laptop systems, and then obviously our smartboard, and educators expressed that they liked that they could interact with the whiteboard. In the early 2000s, maybe late 2000s, Michelle Obama's nutrition policy came around. Schools were required to follow nutrition standards. Students would be now would be required to take a fruit and a vegetable every day at lunch. And then the most current education phase was distance learning. So with the development of COVID-19, schools were forced to develop the last-minute curriculums that were able to be accessed at home via Zoom.
And to close, let us remember, one book, one pen, one child, and one teacher can change the world. And that is by Malala Yousafzai.
And that concludes our PowerPoint 6th graders. So if you notice that half of it was done by Mrs. Leach and half of it was done by me, we each completed 2 slides. We decided which era or which time frame we wanted to research, and then we put 3 to 4 facts on a page and a picture. We cited our source, and we put our name. Please feel free to email us any questions or Zoom in and ask questions, but we do expect that hopefully you'll be ready to present on Wednesday or Thursday.
All right, good luck.
Thanks, guys.